So, there are exactly three categories that you can put every single person that you know, every person that you've ever met will fit into one of those three categories decisively. Now, we're not talking about um, like celestial zodiacs. We're not talking about enneagrams. We're not talking about those things. We're talking about specifically that everyone fits into one of those three categories. Those three categories being evil, unwise, and wise. Now I hear you. Wait a minute, isn't everyone basically good? Isn't everyone at the most core of their being wanting to do the right thing? And I'd say that first off, just look at human history. Look at the situation we're in now. I mean, an election year, a very hotly contested presidential campaign. Like, no, not everyone is good. Not everyone is basically wanting to do the right thing. And in fact, actually, most people are very open with the fact that the things that they want, desire, and pursue at their most basic level are selfish, self interested, and manipulative of others. They see other people as objects, not as persons worthy of love and respect. So, simply, I mean, no, not everyone is good. Basically, not everyone is at the core of their being good. And in fact, no one is. The Bible actually says specifically, no one is good in Romans chapter 3. Everyone has gone astray. Nobody is righteous. So, of those that are left, those three categories: evil, unwise, wise. Now, let's talk about each one of those individually. Evil. An evil person. Now, it's easy throughout life to kind of take that kind of naive position and hope for the best, seeing that people, like most people don't shoplift, but of course, if you've ever worked retail, you've ever been yelled at by a Karen or anything like that, like you know that there are certain people that most certainly do. And so, simply, how do you know an evil person? Well, an evil person, sometimes you don't find out that they're evil until it's too late. They're the overt ones, the ones, the Lex Luthor, the sinister, like the cartoon villain type evil. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Those people exist too. That people like to pin things on as like that they're the new Satan, but no. For the most part, most people that are evil are very covert about it. They're very subversive about it. They're going to gaslight you. They're going to convince you that the things that they've done that are wrong are actually your fault somehow. They're unsafe to be around. They're unsafe to be left in the presence of children, which, an interesting thing about kids, like there's the old adage, right? The kids and dogs can see into your soul, or that they can tell a good person. Like, kids know when they're safe and when they're unsafe. They just have an intuitive sense about that. And if a kid refuses to be around someone, or that they run away from, like, they know. Like, and what's interesting about the most evil people is they're even able to get past that defense, taking advantage of even the most vulnerable people, children, and some, like, those that are willing to even endanger those that haven't even been born yet. So, evil. The second is unwise. Now, the thing about unwise people, obviously evil people, they only see you as an object, or as a piece on a board that they're going to try to move around, that they see you as expendable. Unwise people, they're not that cunning. For the most part, unwise people, they can be just as dangerous, but by accident. They're the ones that they go grocery shopping and they end up buying nothing but junk food because they didn't have a list. They weren't paying attention to what they were grabbing. Just all of a sudden the cart is full. They don't know what's in there. And it ends up costing tons and tons of money but they ended up like they didn't really buy anything of value. They're the ones that, oh, it's just a credit card, I'll just slide it, no big deal. And then suddenly the bill comes in and you're 10 grand down, or it's maxed out and you have no idea what you spent it on. Or they tend to drink in prime. They drive their car around with the light on the dashboard, having no idea what's wrong, no idea how to fix it, and having, because of their poor spending habits, living in places they shouldn't live because they can't afford it, having 15 streaming services that they're subscribed to, and why didn't you go to work today? Well, I just didn't feel like it. Being written up at work because they've been caught doing things at work that they're not supposed to be doing. And what do you mean you've been laid off again? Like, that they abuse substances, whether that's alcohol or other forms of intoxicants that end up costing more than they expect, as well as the health issues that occur, that they may get pulled over for drunk driving and stuff. Like, they do things and they're like, well, they tend to say, I don't know a lot. They tend to say, I just didn't feel like it. That kind of thing. If you are in a, I'll talk more about relationships in another video later, probably next week, maybe later this week. But quite honestly, they may be well-meaning. And in fact, they might actually be a lot of fun to be around. But they're not healthy to be around. All right. Number 3 is the wise person. And these are the safe people. They're the ones that if something happens, you are on the side of the road, they're the one that you're like, help me. They're the first person on their call list. And ideally, you hope that this is your parents. But sometimes parents have the ability to be unwise or dangerous too, obviously. But you hope that it's your parents. You hope that that's the person that you trust. You hope that it's your wife or your husband. You hope that your best friend would fit into that wise category. Your pastor, elders, deacons at your church, maybe more advanced or experienced coworkers, that something goes wrong, you're like, that's the person I need to get me out of this situation, right? Wise. Hopefully you're like, if you run a business, you want wise people at the helm, your managers and assistant managers, because they're going to make good decisions and responsible decisions. They're going to show up on time. They will be prepared. They will have the equipment that they need. The stuff that they don't have, they'll be able to articulate themselves clearly what they need at the beginning or the end of the year. They'll be able to manage things like budgets and stuff well. They're going to know resources, and they're going to minimize waste. That's a wise person. And it's not just numbers. Like, obviously an evil person has the ability to manage budgets and things like that well if they're willing to slash your coworkers and your employees down to the bone and end up working everyone to death because it's cheaper. That can easily be counted as evil. But a wise person finds the balance of being able to take care of employees generously while at the same time managing resources effectively. Wise. Now, all that aside, there is one person in all of human history that was good. So even though, like the Bible says, that nobody is good, that nobody has, there is one person named Jesus that was completely, flawlessly righteous in the eyes of God. And when we finally saw, as humans, when we finally saw what it was like to someone who truly was righteous, our response was to dispose of him as quickly as possible because we could not stand the idea of someone superior than us. See, humans have a crab bucket mentality. If you don't know what that means, basically, when people are gathering up crabs, they put them in a bucket. That bucket doesn't need a lid on it or a clasp or a latch because if a crab starts climbing out, the other crabs will grab it and pull it back down. And human beings are like that. If any time that someone tries to aspire to be greater than they are, or from their level, we pull them down. But see, the thing about Christ is he came from above down to us. To set the example of what true righteousness is, to rewrite our standards. Our bar is low. When we think about relationships and things of like, don't cheat on me, and like our bars are very, very low. His are unattainably high. So he brought us like, no, you need to be up here. And instead of trying to learn from, we chose to get rid of that standard so that we could like literally cut the top off the page and just see our standards on their own. That's how unrighteous we are. That's how unkind. That's how evil at our most core heart is. But his death ended up actually purchasing for us the ability to be righteous in God's heart, God's eyes anyways. That's what's remarkable about the story of Jesus. So, I don't think I'll get to it this weekend, by this week, but I'll talk about some of the way these three categories of humans tend to kind of interlace themselves in relationships with us when they pair up, and what those kind of relationships tend to look like. And if you identify, or you feel like, oh no, I'm in that kind of a relationship, ways that you can improve and strengthen your relationships as well.